What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another Euro 2020 fantasy video. In this one, we are discussing the best captain options for match day 1. So I'm going to go through day by day who are the standout options. Obviously, captain is so important in this game because you can swap it. So you want a few good options as well as maybe some cheaper options as well. So I'm going to talk about the headline players. I know usually with videos kind of before a tournament or a game starts, we focus on cheaper players, but I wanted to just talk about the standouts in this one. One little caveat, I am recording this on Thursday, so I am recording it quite far in advance of when it's going to go out, but hopefully all the info in here is still valid. All the info and the numbers, the goals and assists, conceded, etc. Are all going to be relevant anyway, although there might have been some friendlies in between. So just bear that in mind. Give it a like if you enjoy it. Hit that subscribe button if you're new around here, and let's jump into it. Okay, before we start talking about the players, just a few couple of bits of where I've pulled information for this from. So I've looked back usually over kind of last 5 to 10 games, especially for teams in terms of defensive performances. There's also a good thread by, I'm just looking it up here, Feed the Ox on Reddit, right? FPL Tips on Twitter was someone that alerted me to this. And it's the clean sheet probability for all teams based on the betting odds. Now, obviously, that doesn't mean 100% they're going to be accurate, but it gives you an idea of what the bookies think is going to happen. That can sometimes translate into performances on the pitch. And it's probably one of the best things we can use to dictate or kind of determine how things are going to go. So I'm going to use that in here. Obviously, I know a lot of you will have your own opinions, especially for your own countries, of how they're going to perform. But by using this, there's no bias here. I'm just taking the numbers for all teams that someone else has done. And then I've looked at a lot of goals and assists per 90. Now, for Italy, I've included a defender. For none of the other teams have I done that, right? I'll just tell you that now. And the reason for that is Italy are playing first. We're going to know the team before the deadline. They're playing first. So if it all goes wrong, if you've got a defender in there, then you can just swap to another player. And you've got 4 other opportunities to do that. Whereas if you were going into the last day, for example, you had no attackers, but you had, I don't know, Cancelo or Diaz for Portugal in defence, and you've got, I don't know, like a score of 6 or 7 already, are you going to switch to a defender? Probably not, right? It's going to be too many points to risk on the last day. But for the first day, if you didn't want to pay for an Italian attacker, you could definitely captain defender. Italy have got such a good record defensively. Like, it's not just a cliche, right? They did go through a spell where they weren't performing quite as well, but more recently, they're doing exceptionally well. Now, I've gone for Florenzi as a nailed-on fullback, but lot of talk pre-tournament that even though he hadn't really played too much for Chelsea, Emerson would still go as the left back. But right now it's looking like in a lot of predicted lineups that Spinazzola will get that spot. And interestingly, if you look at the goals and assists per 90 minutes, obviously we're talking about a defender here, but Spinazzola is slightly ahead of Florenzi, which is interesting. The caveat to that is Florenzi's been around for a very long time and his sample size of matches is much bigger, and it's obviously much more difficult to keep those numbers up over a long period of time. So I certainly wouldn't write either of these off. And with such a good chance of a clean sheet, if you're not paying for an attacker or you don't want to go for Chiesa or someone like that, then I think Florenzi's a really good option. So if you've got a defender for Italy, I think they're a really good option for the first day because you've got 4 more days you can swap the captaincy. If you want to go for an attacker, in terms of nailed-onness, then Immobile and Insigne should be 2 that are definitely going to start. Again, it doesn't really matter because we're going to see the team sheet, right? So for everyone under every video that tells me Chiesa's not absolutely 100% nailed on, which I know, we will find out. And if he's not in the team, you can just take him out and swap him for someone else. And like I said, if you've got an Italian defender or a Turkish defender, whatever it might be, you can just captain them instead. Looking at their goals and assists per 90 minutes for their country, very similar. Insigne 0.48 and Immobile 0.45. What's interesting is there's plenty more players on this list with a higher amount per 90 minutes. But obviously, again, because you can swap captains, it doesn't matter. So if you've got one of these, you risk it. If they don't get anything, you just swap the captaincy to another player. Just looking at some of the numbers here, I've got them written down. Italy have kept clean sheets in each of their last 7 games, right? Ridiculous. That's why I like the defenders so much. And they've not even been winning like 1-0 either. They've scored at least 2 goals in each of those games. And Turkey, based on the probability odds from the bookies, 17% chance of a clean sheet. So it's not looking likely they probably are going to score some goals. There is lots of love, I should say, for Turkey, but the clean sheet odds just not looking there. 2 clean sheets in the last 10. They've conceded 16 goals in that time as well. I really like an Italy captain. We can go into a bit more of a longer discussion about whether Immobile or Insigne fit well into people's teams. I think an 8.5 million euro midfielder is difficult to fit in, and Immobile is competing with likes of Kane, Lewandowski, Depay for the same price, right? People are trying to fit Ronaldo in as well. It's hard to fit him in against this Turkey team, I think. And obviously in the other two games, you've got Wales as well and Switzerland too to compete against. So I don't know whether I would have them in my team, but I don't think the fact they're playing Turkey would put me off. And if you've got a defender, I really do think they're a good captaincy option. Really good chance of a clean sheet, I would say. And if you get one of the fullbacks for attacking potential, who knows? You could have come away with like an 8 or 9 pointer straight away. Now, moving on to day 2, I've included Denmark in here because I think they're going to do quite well against Finland. But it is worth pointing out that Belgium also play on day 2 in match day 1. And if you've got one of their attackers, you're almost certainly going to captain them over Eriksen. But I wanted to talk about him a little bit either way. So his goals and assists for Denmark are 0.59, so better. That's per 90 minutes, of course. That is better than Immobile and Insigne, who we just spoken about. And that's over 83 games as well. Denmark have scored 2 or more goals in 8 of their last 10 games. So they're not shy at scoring. And Eriksen himself has had 6 returns over that time, right? So over that 10 games. In terms of Finland, really poor clean sheet potential. I've spoken about that in draft videos and stuff, about how a lot of us, including myself, have got Hradecki for Finland. But I mean, the chance of a clean sheet seem pretty low. In terms of the probabilities that I'm using for all these teams, 17%. They've had 3 clean sheets in the last 10 matches, 17 goals conceded. So there could be goals in this one for Denmark. Obviously, if you've got a different player from Denmark instead, they could also be looked at. But it does mean you're probably going without a Belgian player, which I do think is probably a mistake for match day 1. So I don't think that Eriksen is a better option, but I think if you're not going for the likes of Lukaku, Hazard, De Bruyne, or whoever it might be, then Eriksen probably is the next standout option there. Finland, good chance of scoring a few goals there. Denmark have not been shy at hitting the back of the net. He's their talisman. He's going to play number 10, pushing forward close to the striker. Loves a shot from outside the box as well. On penalties, there isn't too much to love apart from that €9 million price tag. Is that too much? Let me know below. So by the time this video goes out, or even more importantly, you're probably going to be watching this right up until deadline, we might have some more news on De Bruyne. But at this point in time, it looks likely that he's going to miss the first game, but perhaps be back for match day 2, match day 3 and onwards, etc. So because of that, I've not included him in this little talk about Belgium and just how good they are and how good of a captain option they will be. Belgium have scored 29 goals in their last 10 games. Now, obviously, with internationals, right, we're talking about a lot of teams over the last 10 games. Sometimes that's going to be in the Nations League. Sometimes that'll be friendlies, qualifiers, etc. It's much harder to judge teams against each other because they're not always playing against the same teams as well. Like in the league, obviously, I've said this before on videos so far for the Euro tournament that, you know, in Fantasy Premier League, you can look over the whole season. They've all played the same teams twice, right, over the course of a season. And they've done it in the course of a year, apart from if there's like a global pandemic or something like that. So it is difficult to compare these teams, but 29 goals in 10 games is still absolutely incredible. One of those games was 8 goals against Belarus. So even if you take that out, it's still 21 goals in 9 games, which is incredible. Lukaku, in his last 7 matches, 7 goals, 1 assist. I know that a lot of players internationally, right, they do kind of stat. We've seen players, right, we see it for England sometimes. They're not doing it on purpose. They're just playing the competition in front of them, but they stat pad against easier teams. But I still think this is incredible. In 75 games for Belgium, I had to go back and check I hadn't read it wrong. Lukaku's goals and assists per 90 minutes are 1.29. So every 90 minutes he plays, he gets more than 1 return. So he's an incredible option. Now, Hazard isn't quite at that level. Over a similar amount of games, to be fair, it's 84 games, so 9 more. He's got 0.84 goals and assists per 90. So he's still an incredible option. The risk with Hazard is his injury record has not been great, right? So I had a look. He's missed Belgium's last 9 games, but this is why I'm so kind of excited about him. We know what a good player he is, right? We've not all forgotten that. In his last 8 games for Belgium, now they were back in 2019, so it's a little while ago now, he got 12 attacking returns in 8 games, right? 5 of those were goals, 7 of them were assists. So he's still great. He did get some minutes for Madrid at the end of the season, so he is building fitness back up. I'm sure he's going to be involved from the off for Belgium, and we cannot forget just how good he's been. The issue is most people are probably going to go for Lukaku. So if you've got both, how much do you risk it going for Hazard over Lukaku? One thing I'll say about Hazard, again, at the time of recording, he's only 3% owned. And I don't think, no matter how much I talk about him, he's going to go up too high. Because I just don't think people rate him. And they're trying to go for like Depay, Lukaku, Ronaldo frontline. So Hazard's not getting a look in. But if you wanted to go a little bit different, I do like him, but Lukaku is obviously the standout and probably one of the best captain options for match day 1. Looking at the opposition, Russia, so 18% chance for a clean sheet based on the bookies' odds. 2 clean sheets in the last 10. They've conceded 16. This looks like a good opening game. I think Russia are at home, though. That's one thing to say. I think Belgium have to play all their games away from home. But I just think the competition and the stand at Belgium is just so high. This is going to be another game where they score at least 2 goals or more, I think. So great captain options, arguably the best, and probably the reason why we're not going to go for a Danish captain realistically. So we're on to day 3 now. A bit like day 2, we had Denmark, so Christian Eriksen versus Lukaku versus Hazard. We've got another day with quite a few standout options, so Kane and Depay. And for that reason, when you build your teams, you shouldn't necessarily, I don't know, it's not that you can't do it, but you should try and not have too much money on the same day. Like in my current draft that you would have seen, I've got Hazard and Lukaku, and I'm just wondering, could I get a different captain from another day? Obviously, if your captain from like day 1 or day 2 gets kind of 9-10 points, then you might just keep them for the rest of the week or the rest of the match day. So it doesn't necessarily matter if you've got another option on the same day or not, but it's worth considering. Is it worth having Kane and Depay? It's probably better off just having one, and we'll talk about both of them individually. So Kane, again, as you'd expect, 0.92 goals and assists for England in 52 games. Incredible season for Spurs as well, just putting up numbers all over the place. On penalties, he's going to be involved in every single attack. I actually looked recently, like literally today actually, at the time on the day I'm recording this, at England's Euro qualifying, and I know it was a little while ago, but you just remind yourself how often Kane is involved. It's just absolutely crazy. My only worry as an England fan is how slow will we start? We've seen that before. I think objectively, it's very hard for me to look at the England team because I'm always like, right, we're going to win it. Hopefully, not win the whole thing, but we're going to do well. We've got a good squad. But I think other people outside of England get so annoyed about that. They also don't objectively look at the team. And realistically, we just have a good attack, right? Forget the defence, especially in the centre-back and goalkeeper position. It's awful. But in front of that, you're looking at Rice and Bellingham and Mount and Foden and Sancho and Kane. That is a great attack, and there's a good chance for England to score plenty of goals. Now, they're playing Croatia in this game. I haven't forgotten World Cup 2018, right? Absolute nightmare. But again, I'm using all the same numbers or looking at the same numbers I've done for the rest of the team. So last 10 games for Croatia only kept 2 clean sheets, conceding 14 along the way. So we've already seen some other teams on this list conceding 16, 17 in their last 10 games. So Croatia may be a little bit better, but on the clean sheet probabilities, it's only 22%. So there's a very good chance that England will score at least once, maybe twice in this game. Will Croatia score? Possibly, right? Could England draw this game? They probably could. But I think there is a very good chance of us scoring, and Kane has to be one of the best captaincy options. Everything goes through him. He's a penalty taker as well. And England have got those kind of players that can win penalties, right? Sterling might even get a game or come on. Grealish is always getting fouled. Foden, Sancho, I've just named them all. I wouldn't count Kane out. Try not to be biased about England in both ways, right? Don't be an England fan like me and be super biased, but also don't be biased against them because you just get so frustrated with all the England fans talking about them, right? So I think objectively, Kane's a really good option for 11.5. The only thing is, he's up against Depay, and Depay is 1.5 million cheaper, and that's the only reason I can see not to go for him, because I just don't think it's a good idea to have both. So I like Kane, but let's talk about Depay. So although we're talking mostly about who the best player is to captain, I do want to, again, touch on a little bit of strategy and squad structure and stuff like that. And he is 1.5 million cheaper, right? And that can do a lot. If you've got a 7 million mid, maybe that can then go up to someone like Bernardo Silva. For Portugal, you could go up to Torres. For Spain, if he ends up being nailed, you could use that money to upgrade a defender. A lot of us have got 4.5 million euro defenders, but potentially there's better options at like 5.5 or 6. You know, if you wanted to get another Italy defender in or something like that, there is a lot of reason to go with Depay over Kane for that money saving, especially when you've got other captaincies along the way, right? If you were playing a game where there's only one captaincy choice for the first match day, then things are a little bit different. Maybe you do just go for Kane. But when you've already had like an Italy player and then Lukaku, and you're coming onto this day and you've got Depay, maybe you've still got Ronaldo to come, I think that 1.5 million saving is quite big. And one of the reasons why I might change my draft from having Kane to Depay instead. In terms of looking at them, I think, like Kane, he's the talisman. I think England have probably, on paper, I'm not saying this is how it will play out, probably got more players that can kind of take the game to the opposition and are more likely to be involved. Possibly in like a 4-3-3 for Netherlands, like Berghuis or someone like that could be decent. But it looks like they're going to play 5 at the back. So Depay is going to be through the middle, and someone like Berghuis probably isn't going to play. And so everything's going to go through them. Now, there is loads of talk from the Netherlands camp about how the players aren't happy with the formation. I've spoken about this already on my draft video, but a lot of the analysts and stuff looking at the games, you know, the pundits on TV and stuff are just questioning this 5 at the back formation. And that can't be good for the Netherlands. And they even drew 2-2 with Scotland. Now, that is a friendly, right? So we shouldn't pay a huge amount of attention to it. But even so, even with that draw, it was still Depay that was involved with the goals, right? So that's the kind of player that he is. He's got 9 attacking returns in his last 8 for the Netherlands, 6 of them being goals, 0.76 goals and assists per 90. He is the main man there. In terms of clean sheet probabilities, again, I think this is just like in FPL, right? If I say that Liverpool are playing Everton and they're a good captain option, then I'll get back, yeah, but Everton can be good on their day. And you're seeing it a lot with Netherlands. They're going to struggle against Ukraine. But ultimately, on paper, the Netherlands are the better team, right? Yes, Ukraine might be pretty good. Yeah, but they're not at Netherlands level. So I think he is a perfectly good captaincy option. The bookies back that up. 18% Ukraine chance at a clean sheet. So very low. I mean, it's why we're talking about these players, right? 1 clean sheet in their last 10. Last 4 games, though, have all just been for 1 goal. So maybe they're keeping a tight-ish ship. But still conceding. I do think, like I said, there are some concerns with the Netherlands in terms of switching from 4-3-3 back to 5 at the back. And, you know, I saw De Ligt was talking about it as well, and he didn't seem very happy with it, although I haven't obviously seen I've only seen the translated stuff on Twitter. But yeah, I still like Depay, and I think that 1.5 million saving is quite big, right? At a time when we're trying to fit in as many big hitters as we can without completely weakening the rest of our team, I do think potentially Depay is a better option than Kane, just for that reason. I think day 4 is quite tricky for captaincy because Lewandowski is 11.5 million. So again, he's competing with Kane, Ronaldo, Depay, etc. I think a lot of people's strategy will be to have a Spanish player as like a backup just in case the previous 3 days have gone wrong, which is nothing wrong with that, right? Nothing wrong with that. But I think in terms of standout captaincy options, Lewandowski is probably the one. The problem with Spain is I'm not quite sure exactly what the lineup is going to be. I've seen a few different predicted lineups. And until we see some more of the friendlies, which might have happened by the time you see this video, in which case I do like the likes of Moreno if they're nailed, Torres if they're nailed, etc. But until we see exactly how they line up, I'm just not sure whether to kind of recommend them as best captains. I think they're good backup captains, but that's about it. Like if Moreno starts as the number 9, I really like him. 6.5, great option. But if Morata plays there, will Moreno move wide? And if Moreno moves wide, what happens to Olmo and Torres, etc.? We're going to have to wait and see. So I think Lewandowski is the one. What's interesting about this is Sweden actually have according to the bookies, a worse chance at a clean sheet than Slovakia do, but Slovakia is still very low at 23%. So Lewandowski is a great option. 0.96 goals and assists. He is the main man, right? That's over 76 games. He's on penalties. He's got 13 returns in his last 10 matches for Poland as well. And they've scored, as a country, 19 goals over the last 10. So they're not that shy at scoring goals. And Slovakia have only had 2 clean sheets in the last 10. I think for me, like if you're thinking about this in isolation and I'm looking at day 4 and I want the best captain, I'm probably going for Lewandowski. But if we're talking a bit about strategy in this video as well, which we have been, then I just wonder if there are better options. Can you stretch the 0.5 million to go to Ronaldo on the last day, for example, who we'll talk about in a minute, and maybe have a Spanish, cheap forward or a Spanish midfielder instead, just as a backup for this day? And maybe you spend the money on Depay and Lukaku. Like that's what a lot of people are going to go for, I think. Lukaku, Depay and Ronaldo. And I can't really question it too much. I'm just not sure where Lewandowski fits in. The thing is, I think he could potentially score in any of the games that he has in this group. Maybe against Spain, Slovakia, Sweden, etc. But the thing with this game is we have chips, and you're almost not forced, but you might as well use the limitless chip in the groups, and because of that, you can move around your players a little bit. So for my team, I haven't even put France and Germany in this, right? Mbappe isn't coming near this video just because he's got a difficult fixture. But for Limitless Matchday 2, he'll definitely be in there. So again, Lewandowski probably misses out, maybe, just because of his price. And then Matchday 3, who knows? Maybe you swap one of your big hitting forwards, whoever it was. Like, if you went for Ronaldo, for example, Matchday 1, you Limitless Matchday 2, you get Mbappe in. And then Matchday 3, maybe you do Ronaldo to Lewandowski then. Could happen. I don't know. I think, like I said, in isolation, he's a good captain option against Slovakia. His return rate is just incredible. We know what a great player he is, right? There's a debate about whether he or Kane is the out-and-out best number 9 in the world, which I'm not going to get into now. But there's every reason for it to be Lewandowski as the best striker in the world. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you he's a bad option. But when I think about everything else that we have to take into account, not just him as a pick on day 4 in isolation, I'm not sure he warrants a place in our teams. And he's probably going to make me regret saying that. I did wonder whether you really needed me to sit here and tell you how good Ronaldo is and how good of a game this is. But I thought I would keep it consistent, go through the same similar numbers that we're looking at. Obviously, strategy-wise, first of all, there is a case to say that you don't need Ronaldo. Because if you're getting to day 5 without getting a single captaincy return, something's probably gone horribly wrong. And in that point, I wonder if there's a better way to spread the cash. So again, if you've seen my latest draft video, if you haven't, by the way, go and watch it. I don't have Ronaldo because I've spent that money elsewhere. So I've got a captain on day 1 would be like an Italy defender, maybe Chiesa, possibly if I go with him. Day 2, it's Lukaku, but I've also got Hazard and Eriksen. Then day 3 is Kane or Depay. And if I've gotten that far, all right, and if I think Moreno is nailed on, for example, then I've got Moreno for Spain on day 4. If I've gotten that far and I don't have a return, then it's probably game over for me in match day 1 anyway. So I don't know if spending 12 million on a forward I definitely don't want for match day 2, and probably not for match day 3 either. I don't know if it's worth spending the cash, but we know what kind of a dead cert he is for scoring. And if I don't use a chip in Matchday 3, like a lot of you will be looking at, right, Limitless Matchday 2, then he's an easy swap because you can literally swap into any other player. So I think it's Germany versus Hungary on the last day. I think it's France. Yeah, it's France versus Hungary in Matchday 3. It's Germany in Matchday. Sorry, it's France versus Hungary in Matchday 2. It's Germany in Matchday 3. So you could swap Ronaldo to one of the Germany forwards instead, and maybe spend that money elsewhere to upgrade another player. Anyway, we're getting a bit off track here, right? I'm not, like I said, I'm not included France and Germany because I just think as good as they can be, especially France, right? France are probably the favourites for this tournament, I would say, with the squad they have. We know how good they are in attack, but I don't expect them to turn Germany over, and I certainly don't expect Germany to turn France over. So in terms of for the money that it would cost, I just don't see them as good captaincy options for match day 1. For the other 2 match days, absolutely, it's a little bit different. If you're looking at Portugal, it has to be Ronaldo. Of course, you could default to like a Bernardo Silva, for example. If you just, like how I was saying just a minute ago, how if you had Torres, it's like a backup captain. I think Bernardo Silva could be as well. You've gone 4 days, no return. All right, I'll just throw it on Bernardo Silva. So I'm not completely ruling him out, but Fernandes is too expensive for me. His role in the Portugal team is just not as prominent as it is for Man United. He doesn't have to be that talisman. And Jota, maybe this will change in the friendlies, but he's not even nailed on. If he was, I think he is a really good option for 8.5, but alas, he just isn't, right? Anyway, some stats, right? Ronaldo's pretty good. 1.04 goals and assists in 136 games. So he's got 136 games and got more than 1 goal and assist on average per game, right? I know it's ridiculous. I know you know this, but sometimes you just say it out loud and you just realise how crazy it is. I was curious to see how much he's done recently. He is getting older. He's not going to be playing for too much longer, I would say. At least not at the top level. 6 returns in 10. So it has slowed down maybe a bit, but not possibly as much as I thought he would. I definitely wouldn't write him off, obviously, for obvious reasons. And he is the kind of shoot-on-sight guy. So if he gets a chance, boom, he's having a shot. 18% chance for a Hungary clean sheet. 4 clean sheets in the last 10. They have only conceded 10 goals in those 10. So I don't know. I didn't triple check the opposition, but that is one of the lowest out of all the teams we've talked about. But I just wonder if that 12 million price tag possibly puts people off a little bit. Whether it should or not, that's up to you. Let me know what you think in the comments below. But I just think maybe you should just bank on getting a captain return before day 5. and spread that cash elsewhere? Is anyone thinking of doing that? Let me know below. So there we go. That is it for best match day 1 captains. How many of these players that I've spoken about are you putting into your team? And do you think it's a little bit harsh that I left Spain out? Obviously, I didn't want to go through every single team as best captain because realistically, you're just not going to captain them unless you're absolutely stuck. So I wanted to talk about the main contenders we know are pretty much nailed on, have got a good fixture and have got good pedigree. So let me know how many of these players you're having. I reckon I'll have Italy defender, Lukaku, Depay, I'm not sure about Ronaldo, maybe a Spanish player, and possibly a Portuguese midfielder, maybe. If I thought Jota was nailed on, I'd go for him, but it could be João Felix, Bernardo Silva on the other side, and like a number 10 like Bruno Fernandes and Ronaldo up front. That's the only problem. Anyway, if you like it, please do give it a like. Hit that subscribe button if you're new around here. Hopefully the strategy and stuff I talked about helped. Next video will probably be tomorrow. Like I said, I have recorded this on Thursday. I know it's really far in advance, but that is life sometimes, right? The weekend is coming. I need to be free for that. So yeah, I wanted to get this video up and out on Sunday. So hopefully you enjoyed it. Give it a like if you did. Hit that subscribe button if you're new around here. And I'll catch you again soon.